Well, for any fans of the Premier League, you may have been harboring or perhaps even desperate for a winter break, especially if you're actually in the Premier League. Well, you get one this year, technically speaking. We do have a 6 week break to the Premier League to deal with a rather major tournament in the Middle East, which we'll get to later on this week. But Neil, before we do break for the World Cup, I think you have to do a bit of a state of play on how the Premier League table is right now because it makes for very interesting reading, especially if you're an Arsenal fan.
Especially if you're a lot of fans, a lot of team
Yeah.
fans as well. This is we're not really halfway through. We're only 14 games in,
Mm.
so about just a little over a third of the way in, and the second half in quotations is quite compressed. I know from an Arsenal standpoint, I think
Mm.
it's something like 39 game when the World Cup ends and the Premier League resumes, the proper football resumes. We've 39 games between then and the end of the season, which is as many games as we played all of last season. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, most teams will basically have a compressed. Uh, yeah, it's going to be compressed. So that's the second half is going to be pretty crazy. But yeah, 14 games in. We're taking a break for 6 weeks. We won't continue on now until St. Stephen's Day, so it's a good time to take a bit of a rundown, a bit of a stock take.
It is, and this is quite a stock take because as we kind of probably saw from the we kind of discussed from the start of the season, like this was going to be a season that was going to be so interfered with by the World Cup that you were going to get strange results and things were not going to look right because bear in mind they had to start earlier as well. So certain teams only had like a preseason of a month or so, and that's kind of showing in the league table almost because a lot of teams that kind of had a very clean break at the end of the summer have started off strong, and then teams that like say have had like other obligations or even like stuff like tours, commercial tours, let's say, have had actually pretty poor starts. But we'll get to it now. So we'll start off at the top of the table, and probably enough the alphabetical order kind of seems to work here because Arsenal are top. By 5 points, you've only lost one game all season, and that was to Manchester United. Like as starts go, this is a pretty strong start. If anything, I think it's actually stronger than the legendary Kevin Keegan Newcastle team that like got so close and yet so far. Now obviously like as an Arsenal fan, Neil, you are very, very sensitive to jinxes and you don't want to commit overcommit to
I'd
how you
love it.
feel
I'd
Arsenal are
love
gonna do. Yeah.
it.
You'd love it. You'd love it. You had to get a result in Brighton. No, in fairness. But like realistically, how well have Arsenal done this year? And are you surprised indeed that you're top of the table?
Well, very much surprised it's our best start to a season ever. Like ever.
Hmm.
Like I think we're a good number of points ahead of where the Invincibles were at this point. But that's not really a yardstick, which kind of shows you just how distorted the Premier League
Mm.
is at this point. That a completely undefeated season isn't the yardstick anymore. It's the oil stay
Yeah.
teams. But yeah, we're going into the World Cup pretty much off the back of almost a perfect first half. Of let's fuck it. It's not exact half, but fuck it, we'll call it a half. So yeah, we're going in 12-1, one loss, one draw. Funnily enough, it'll be the draw that'll rankle more people than the loss.
Mm.
Um, get into that bit, but yeah, I'm like, I don't think anybody thought of this. So surprised, fuck yes.
Mm.
Delighted, hell yeah. Going in five clear of City, and the top four are starting to really pull ahead now. So yeah, we got 37 points from a possible 42. So I'm delighted. Yeah.
And what do you think has been the kind of like success of that? Has it been the arrivals of say Jesus and Zinchenko? Has it been the fact that this team have betted in the year and they're kind of the team is now in a more of a shape of the manager as opposed to say a kind of a mix of the previous regimes? Is it now looking like a team that Mikel Arteta has actually wanted all this time?
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's a project. It was a project, and it's now just starting to bear fruit. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. The combination of great
Mm.
recruitment, um, with Zinchenko and Jesus, other players really playing out of the skin and really showing what they can do. So at the beginning of the season, we were starting off with White and Gabriel, Big Gabby, as our
Hmm.
starting centre back pairing. Um, so we've shifted White now. We had Benjamin White in there. We brought him in as kind of like centre back, and but like Saliba is just we got him back from Marseille, and he's just been so fucking good.
Yeah.
Then we got a bit of an injury crisis at right back, shifted White there because he played there previously, and he's turned into a fantastic right back for us. So that's great. It solves the problem of we're not leaving White out in the cold or Saliba out in the cold. We can play all
Mhm.
three of our brilliant mercurial centre backs because White's a fantastic right back, and he's probably been one of the better right backs in the league. And so yeah, I'm like it's so yeah, so Saliba playing out of his skin. I mean, there's other managers are taking time out of their press conferences to go, "What a player!"
Yeah.
um, he's easily bit he's the one everybody's talking about. Look at any kind of half term team of the season, he's in every back line. Um, yeah, and he's just been absolutely fucking fantastic. And yeah, and a lot of players kicking on now. Gabriel Martinelli, I don't, you know, Jesus, is there a better wide forward than him in the league? Really? I don't, not really.
Mm.
Saka has just been as usual brilliant, absolutely brilliant there. So that's a wonderful left right combo with Jesus in the middle, and just it's just all industry, it's all work, it's all brilliant. And Odegaard as well is clicked in now.
Oh,
He's been
Odegaard has really caught my eye this year. Like, I know he's had the captaincy now in a sense, but he's really taken ownership of it. And just the actual underlying numbers really backed it up as well. Like, he's just really kicked on with the team itself.
yeah, everything's clicked, everything's gotten in, everybody's in each other's grooves, and yeah, I'm like it's just been brilliant. We've had a number of standout performances. I mean, the 1-0, I mean, the Chelsea game is a classic kind of almost 1-0 hammering.
Yeah.
When we just absolutely ran riot over them, yeah, at their home turf, and it's brilliant. And what's brilliant about this part now is that City have yet to play anybody really. They've not really. Have they played anybody in the top six?
They played Man United and us, and they lost against us, and they trashed Man United. I believe they played Chelsea, but I don't recall who won in that match. I don't think they have played at Chelsea
No, they
actually.
haven't
I don't
played Chelsea.
recall.
No,
No,
no.
no, they haven't. I
So,
suppose. Yeah.
so they played Man U, beat them. They played Liverpool and lost. Um, so yeah, I think we've played Liverpool, Spurs, and Chelsea. Won all three of them,
Hmm.
and yeah, just loving that. Like I'm loving that we've gotten like it's not been a case of like we've just thundered through the bottom half of the table. We've played the people we played teams in and around us, and we've beaten them all soundly. And it's yeah, I'm fucking loving it.
Yeah.
I
No,
really am.
absolutely. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, like again, I'm tempted fate here. We're saying like, do you consider now yourselves as championship contenders, or is it because you mentioned that number there, 39 games? Is that going to catch up to this team? Because we have this issue all the time with teams that play in the Europa League. The Thursday Sunday regime does fuck up with the teams, kind of circadian rhythms, if you like. So, is that would you feel is kind of the deciding factor of Arsenal's domestic season? Do you have a trade off between the Europa League, or do you commit to basically securing top four? Which, like going by the current form, you probably would do, but this is a very topsy turvy season, so you never know.
Yeah, I'm like it's just to see what happens in the second half of it. I mean, it's we just need to get a full team back because
Hmm.
we've still been hit. We've been hammered with a fair amount of injuries. So Kieran Tierney's had a good few injuries. His form has been down. Really, he's not really been getting to the team a whole lot. A bit unhappy. Smith Rowe has been out the entire season whole so far. Um, we've just been desperately trying to get them back. Um, El Neni is now just back from injury.
Hmm.
So we do need some January reinforcements. I reckon. No, like Arteta's always a we're in it to win it, no matter what it is, kind of manager. So I reckon he will look at a good, strong league and Europa League running, and we'll see about the FA Cup. We're already out of the league, the Milk Cup.
Yeah,
Thank fuck. We topped our Europa League group, so we don't have to play any of the
yeah, you get
Champions
the
League.
buy into the next round. So,
Yeah, we don't get any of the Champions League dregs. We go straight into the round of 16.
mhm.
So yeah, no, it's good. No, I reckon we'll get top four. I mean, it's mental to think again. I pointed to earlier on to the distortion that City and the oil states bring to the league in that we're five clear at the top going in at Christmas, and people can we can't even consider ourselves in a title race. You know,
Yeah, because you're just accepting the inevitability of Man City and almost.
pretty
It's
much.
very
You
much
know,
like, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's crazy to think that. I mean, I don't think like Man City will do what they did in Leicester's winning year, which is I think they lost like 10 games that season.
That was when the team kind of fell apart almost
Yeah.
under Pellegrini's just apathy.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna happen again.
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think a lot will ride on the January transfer window.
Hmm.
I think an awful lot. I think and most of the times the January transfer window is kind of ignored by a lot of people because we don't really like it's only really there for teams who absolutely desperately need to bring in people or if just something happens in the summer and a player has to delay their transfers till Christmas or something like that or till
Yeah.
January kicks up. But I think there's going to be an awful lot of focus now there because lots of teams will be trying to like lots of teams will have their players coming back from the World Cup and to be like trying to cobble together a team from whatever is left of their players after playing 6 weeks in fucking Qatar.
Mm.
So yeah, it's well, in the particular Arsenal need reinforcements as well. We need backup in centre mid and we need another wide forward. We were going hard in for Douglas Luiz prior to the league starting.
Hmm.
And I probably won't go back in for him again. We probably will go in for another player. But no, so far grade A. The line goes up, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously, your kind of main challenger at the moment is going to be Man City for obvious reasons. And what I find interesting for them in particular, obviously, a lot is made about the fact that Haaland is not going to the World Cup, therefore he will be impervious to pain. Um, but what is interesting though is that Man City are bringing the most players out of the Premier League kind of quartet, if you will. So anyone who's kind of I think they're bringing 17 players to the World Cup, and a lot of them are playing like for this certain countries. They're playing for Portugal's, England's, Argentina's, they're Germany. So they're all and Spain's, of course. So they're all playing in potential contenders, which obviously you're expecting a lot of them to go further into the World Cup, not just squad like a group stage cameo.
Hmm.
Um, like I just feel, and maybe this is me wishing more than anything else, because I am at this stage in a anyone but Man City kind of attitude really towards them. Um, like is that a deciding factor then? Is how much exhaustion is going to play into it? Because we know Guardiola's style; it is a very committed, high energy system. Um, and if they are just kind of basically being parachuted back into the Premier League after a 6 week stint, potentially some of these players have won the World Cup, and some of them crucially may have lost it. So we don't know, like even how the mental side that's going to kick in.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
something like there's only like 6 days between the final and the start of the season or something like that.
I think our first game back, as in from the World Cup, is actually the Carabao Cup fourth round. So literally from the World Cup final, there's a 4 day turnaround to us playing Manchester City in the League Cup, which is ludicrous, obviously. But like I think there's even games taking place earlier than that in the Carabao Cup, and no doubt they'll kind of shuffle it to suit the scheduling. But it's just mayhem, and that's kind of the way the season goes until the end in July, I think, or
Yeah,
in August.
the final is the 18th of December,
Yes.
and the first Premier League game is the 26th.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's Brentford v Spurs, a half 12. Jesus.
Do
Um,
you imagine? It's just like
so that's 8 days. So like, fuck, man. Like
cruel. It's cruel. But like I said, is that like so? Is that I suppose if you're Arsenal and you're looking at that and you're kind of almost like watching the Man City players like a hawk and
oh
seeing
yeah, you're
if
yeah
they
you're
end
playing
up.
Man City to quarter to wait on the 20th. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's the Carabao Cup. Yeah, which is ludicrous to think. But but yeah, I think that's like maybe it is just me, but I feel like that could be an issue that like Man City might have to watch their own players and and how they actually progress in the tournament because that might affect the domestic league, which is a ludicrous thing to say about the World Cup. But hey, it was their decision to play during the fucking winter, so here we are. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Oh no, absolutely. This Winter World Cup is going to monstrously affect the second half of the season. Like it's going to be huge. Like we're essentially getting two seasons.
Yeah. It's
Um,
a sprint and then a slightly longer, more obstacle infused sprint.
yeah, it's just crazy. So, oh
Mm,
yeah, it's definitely going to play in. To how much it's going to play in, it's really I can only say until well I can't say until actually we're actually in it. So
yeah, very true. Very true. And I suppose one team that actually have been probably capitalizing on all this is probably the Newcastle, who sit very comfortably in third. Again, they've only lost one game all season, and that was against Liverpool. But they have been one of the better teams in the league. And maybe it was me, and this is not a criticism of the Newcastle team at all, but they have certainly capitalized on the proverbial big six just really dropping levels this season. Now, for some clubs or for some teams, the reasons for that are very, very obvious. But like you take the opportunity when you can get it, and like Newcastle have been fantastic to watch. Like they play great football, and Miguel Almiron is on for the Ballon d'Or, which I'm very happy with.
but Jack Grealish is eating us every time every
Legit,
time.
every time he scores, a little bit of Jack Grealish dies each
Yeah, you
time, and
see
that
Jack Grealish's
it
phone
fills me with joy.
starts blowing up, and he's like, "I
Yeah.
already know what happened. I already know what happened, but I don't even have to look at my fucking phone, mate." Um, yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, they're third. They're playing really, really well. I think somebody asked, I think I remember having a conversation a while ago with somebody saying whether or not it's a combination, whether or not it was either Eddie Howe being a good coach or the fact that they spent 200 million in the transfer window. And I think it's actually both.
It is both,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Howe's a good coach. And but yeah, you can't look at that huge outlay and think, yeah, this hasn't affected anything at all. Like they'd have still been third had they not done this, which is patent nonsense. Um, but it's yeah, it's really, really good. They had a fantastic 3-3 draw with Man City. That was a good game.
Which is good. That was good crack, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great. They've had 4 games where they've scored 4 goals or more.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Chelsea at home. Um,
And that was in particular a good result for Newcastle because Chelsea were not very good, and that has been the story of their season, as we'll get to when we get to them in the league. But
yeah, pretty
but like
much.
I said, they've looked quite at home against top six competition
Yeah, they
almost.
beat Spurs as well, 2-1.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they've got but it's a combination of yeah, they signed in some good players and the players that they have gotten, like a lot has been pointed out that this team has hit the heights that it's got with a majority of those players being there before Howe came in. Like there a
Mm.
lot of that team is players that he's inherited. But I still think that the new owners and the money that they're pumping in has affected those players because it's no longer a Mike Ashley penny pinching miserly regime
Yeah, there's
whereby
training facilities being upgraded. There's all these other small things that we don't see almost from a fan's point of view.
but it's also a case of like, you know, if you underperform at Newcastle, they're not going to be able to get rid of you because they're not going to buy anybody to replace you.
Mhm.
Whereas now, you know, if you're not a good, if you're playing if you're an attacking mid and you're not doing your job, you know, it's not like who the fuck is Mike Ashley going to say? He doesn't want to put 10 bob and a pickled egg into this fucking club. He wants shot of it.
Mhm.
Whereas now they're like, oh, well, if I don't perform, you know, they'll just turn around the how and go, here's 65 million and get James Madison.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah,
so they're like, oh
and
shit, like I'm gonna
that
be out of a
competition
fucking
made
job here.
worse.
Yeah,
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 that's a motivation that works. It's like the other will just pull the trigger on your fucking contract, but get somebody in to uh, take over from you, and you can warm the bench until your contract expires, or until we can flog you off somewhere, so you can fuck off.
hmm
You know,
yeah,
good. And
absolutely.
also the thing is that they're also playing. They're like, well, if I play really well, and I get a contract extension with Newcastle, it's gonna be a shit. So it's gonna be a shite load better than what I would get elsewhere, and it would be a shite load better I'd get under Ashley because he didn't want to pay nobody. These
Yeah, so
guys,
they're just a more attractive outfit outright, and it is showing on the pitch, like because they are very clearly enjoying their football now more than anything else, which is fair enough. No, so the team situated in fourth is Spurs, and every time I kind of picture Spurs this season, I just picture an imposter from Among Us, and I don't know why that is. it's just I think whatever it is when I have watched Spurs this season, I'm thinking to myself, how on God's green earth have they won 9 games this season? Because they play horrendous for say
Yeah,
an hour, and then everything is condensed into a half an hour sprint. And I feel like I think Conte's trying to cheese this season, and I think it's working.
it Spurs are so mad, right? So they've started off, as you said, they've just basically not shown up for the first half of every game. You
Yeah,
know, I think the term flying around is Tottenham half spur. You
I
know,
like that. I want to
um,
nick that from now on. Yeah.
so it's fuck. It's so weird talking about Spurs. Not even just as I'm an Arsenal fan. This is much like Arsenal. This is actually also their best start to a season ever.
Hmm. It's
They,
bizarre,
they
isn't it?
yeah, they've never started the season better. But unlike Arsenal, they've never played worse football. And even the most ardent Spurs fan, and you look at them online and read blogs and shit like that, and they're all like, "This is fossil football. Like this is terrible. This is absolutely fucking terrible football. It's really, really bad. They don't show up for any first half. They just have to pray that they don't get absolutely mauled in the first 45 minutes and then try and pull their dicks out of the fire in the last half. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. Just totally surrender the first half of every game. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a kind of Conte thing where it's a compressed season, so he's trying to save the players for like, here, look, first half, don't really do a whole lot, just don't get battered. And then in the second half, that's when we show up and that's when we play. So in
Hmm.
essence, you're not playing 90 minutes, you're playing 45 with like a 45-minute warm up at the beginning, a 45-minute hard warm up, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but my God, like it's wow, like it's terrible. Like they're playing terribly, but they're like you say football's a results driven game, and you can't really argue with the results. They're fourth. Um, they've
But I feel like
yeah.
they're fourth because no one else has been able to challenge them consistently. Like I
Oh
think
yeah, yeah, no,
United are
absolutely.
only like 3 points behind them, and they have the game advantage on them, and Liverpool aren't too far behind either. And I feel like once one of those two teams gets their shit together, I think Spurs are completely out of the top four and not even in contendership. It's just that there's a lack of contenders out for the top four right now, as opposed to say if this happened last season, for example, Spurs would be mid-table for me
Oh
because
yeah,
they would
absolutely. I
just get
mean,
spanked.
they're you know they've yet to beat another team around them. Like I'm like
Hmm.
they lost 2-0 to Man U. We beat them, which is always great.
Yeah,
Always not. Yeah, it's always great. Um, but like the 2-1, they lost 2-1 to yourselves, like to
yes,
Liverpool.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So I just like they're just like chemically dependent on Son and Kane.
Hmm.
And Kulusevski's now come in and he's been really, really good for them, but he's patchy injury wise. Um, Bentancur has been pretty good for them as well. He's just not
Mm.
started. I mean,
He
like, I know
suits the
he's
system very well.
yeah, he suits that system. He's not well. Kulusevski and Bentancur suit the system because Conte took them from Juve.
Juve, yeah.
So they don't want to suit the system. It's the exact same one he played there.
Yeah.
But it's oh man, it's they've been really, really bad. They've managed to grind out the results, and I just don't know how, and nobody knows how really. And I just, yeah, something's got to give. I feel like something's got to give, but I'm not sure if it will. You know, a
I
lot
feel like
rise.
it is the kind of thing where he might just get away with it. It depends on one of the teams behind them actually kicking into gear and challenging them. And I think it probably will be Liverpool given how we might look after the World Cup personally. We'll get to Liverpool when we get to them,
Yeah,
but United are behind them at the moment, and obviously they have the game advantage and like goal difference is definitely in Spurs' favor. But like with United, this is perhaps a good chance for it to take stock in Ten Hag's team. And while I think there have been green sprouts, like there are still a few kind of issues in that team, and obviously a lot of them has to do with their big prima donna million week earning fucking number seven, and who at the moment as we're speaking is spilling the tea on how Manchester United betrayed him, and now he's moving on to liars about the Golden Clerk Award, and quite
fucking yeah.
frankly,
He's currently burning bridges. He's not just burning bridges; like he's burnt the bridges, and he's now currently pissing on the ashes.
yeah, yeah.
It
Like
is really something
it's
else.
pathetic, really. But this is probably a godsend to Man United because then this fucking absolute dickhead is out of the dressing room
Oh yeah,
eventually.
no. This plays right into their hands. Like,
Mm,
well, it plays into Ten Hag's hands anyway. He doesn't
yeah.
want the fucker. He never did. If Ten Hag had been in charge a year ago, they probably would not have even signed him.
Mm,
Um, and I think they've made that perfectly clear. And just Ronaldo was like, well, I don't. You see, the thing about that interview, right? And I don't want to derail all of the Manchester United talk by just talking about this interview. But the thing about the interview is, I've no idea what it was for. Like, was it to force a move? Was it to like make the club want to get rid of him? I was like, well, they already did anyway. Ten
mm,
Hag has made it perfectly obvious that he's no longer accommodating him anymore. The club do want shot of him. It's just nobody's willing to take on his fucking wages. Like, if somebody would come around and offer them 10 bob and a pickled egg, they'd fucking take it. Um, but who'd take on his half a million quid a week wages? You
yeah.
know, like he's still out. Like if they cancel the last 6 months of his contract, they still owe him 12 million quid in wages. Like it's crazy.
It's ludicrous. Yeah. It's
So
so
I don't get like right. So it's not to force him to move because they've been trying to get shot of him. They can't. I'm like, rumor on the mill is that Todd Bowley is fucking desperate to sign him, but
mm.
fuck knows where that's gonna go. I don't really think so. I think there'd be a lot of people in Chelsea that would be desperate for Todd to keep his fucking checkbook in his wallet. They just go, no, please don't do not fucking sign him. Um, the fucking idiot Piers Morgan like thinks that he'd be a good signing for Arsenal, which is just the dumbest fucking thing ever. Like I was
It says more about Pierce Morgan as a
it
football
says
fan,
more
to be
about him,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like he claims to be a fan of the club. I was like, man, you can't be if you think that. You absolutely just can't be. But yeah, I have no idea what this fucking interview is for. Like, because it shocked his teammates, right? Because he didn't even tell his own agency that he was
Yeah.
doing the interview. So I was like, well, okay, then if it's the force of move as well, who's going to take him after this? Even if there was like a host of clubs out there looking to sign him, after that interview, they're
Mm.
going to go, this guy's a fucking douche. Like more than a douche, like than we
Yeah.
thought beforehand. Like everybody knew he was an egotistical prick, but like the juice is now no longer worth the squeeze. So I've no idea what it was for. I've no idea.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's
the
bizarre.
athletic thing, the
It
athletic
feels like
thing
it was just to massage his ego and try and make himself feel better.
I don't
But
know.
like,
The
yeah.
huge victim complexing thing is going on. Alec, every single time he's thrown us, every single time he's tried to play the victim, it's been at the worst times for him. So, like when they beat Spurs, that was when he stormed out of the stadium and refused to be subbed on. Like he's sitting there going,
Mm.
they won that game, so you not showing up, you leaving early, you not showing up, which made you look really, really bad, makes you look even worse in light of the fact that they fucking won the game. So they're just like people are going to be happy to go. Well, fuck off. We don't need you. We don't need you. And a lot of the fan base, an awful lot of fan base, have turned on him, which at the beginning of the season and going from last season wasn't the case.
Mm.
He's lost the groundswell of support for him, and if this is a desperate attempt to kind of get it back, it's failed spectacularly as every other attempt has. Because all he's done is to slag off. I mean, like he slagged off the Glaziers, but then the fucking United fans been doing that for decades. Like,
Yeah, that's not new. Yeah.
they've got their all alternative flags for the fucking Glazier game. So like, like you're a little behind the curve there, Cristiano.
Mm.
Um, it's just great. Oh, the Glazers don't respect the club. In other news, water's wet, sky is blue. Like you don't need to be told that by Cristiano Ronaldo that the Glazers have no respect for Manchester United when you look at everything that they've fucking done to that club.
Yeah. That's
It
not a
just,
shocker at all. Like,
yeah,
that's not
exactly.
news
That's
anymore.
not a shocker at all. Like, so I had no idea about the interview. I'm like, I've only seen the snippets from the interview because it was on like some mad channel that I've no even idea existed until now. Um,
Yeah, like the whole thing is as we're recording it now, the whole like cut is going up now, like on this fucking like alt like far right fucking news channel. So in a sense, it's not really a shock that Ronaldo picked Pierce Morgan on this right wing channel to put this shit out to, but whatever, I don't care.
no,
But
no, no. The Piers Morgan is long, like he's a proper Ronaldo sycophant, despite the fact that he
yes,
seems to be an Arsenal fan.
Which
But yeah,
also kind of proves that he's not an Arsenal fan.
he's not really much of one. So yeah, I'm like, but like if you're like a really famous celebrity and you really want somebody who will suck the fart sediment out of your arse crack and call it gold, Piers Morgan is your fucking parasite.
Yeah,
That
he is.
that's the guy. That's the person you turn to.
Hmm.
But in any case,
But like
in
pulling
terms
away
of
from Ronaldo,
yeah,
if you can, but even then, obviously, like Ten Hag I think has done a superb job in actually managing through this. I wouldn't even call it chaos. It's just it's just a strop. It's drama. Yeah, it's drama. It's not chaos. It's drama. And like he's done it so that the likes of the Maguire's out of the team. De Gea is on a relatively tight leash. Although again, if Henderson stayed, and you might argue he might be under more competition. The likes of Shaw has competition. Dallo is in for Wan-Bissaka. The team is looking a lot more sensible. And even on top of that, then you're bleeding in new players. The likes of Garnacho, Anthony, yeah, is a showboater, so he's given that kind of flair to the team as well. But you're starting to get tunes out of the likes of Rashford and Martial, even if it is for bits and starts, because they're not consistent enough really to lay the challenge down. But they are popping up with the occasional goal, and they are playing decent football again. So in a sense, like are United are like what you could say an outside. I wouldn't say they're an outside chance for top four, and the reason I say it is because you mentioned 39 games for Arsenal next towards the end of the World Cup. I think United have 41
mm.
because they have to go through the extra round of Europa League fixtures, and that's going to just kill this team. Especially if they
They
do
got
want to.
Barcelona.
They have Barcelona exactly, so that's gonna they have to prioritize their competition, and Lord knows what they get in the third round of the FA Cup. I think they're still in the Carabao Cup, so they have a lot of games to play. And with United, they will probably want to fight on all four fronts, I'm sure. But eventually, this team are going to have limits, and they're going to have to prioritize their competitions. Um, Out of all the teams I see they're chasing, I think they have the most obstacles to overcome, and I don't think they have the squad depth to reflect it. Now, again, what's helping him is they have a like golden generation of young players they can rely on. A lot of them are loaned out now, but you still have the likes of Garnacho there and a few others that you can perhaps rely on, um, to come up for it. But I think it'll be an interesting like second half. A lot of it does have to do with what happens with Ronaldo, because if you do get rid of him, remarkably enough, there is probably enough budget there to sign a replacement, maybe even two. It's
Yeah.
bizarre. Like,
Well, the budget's always there. Manchester United are a money making machine. They are
mm.
actually still in the Carabao Cup. They actually the same time you guys play City, they're playing Burnley.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Exact same day,
Okay.
and exact same time. So
Mm,
yeah. So Manu, it's weird. At the beginning, it wasn't that good.
mm,
They had not had a good start to the season. They've had some really ropey results. They're absolute drilling by Brentford 4-0,
mm.
being a particularly low
That
point.
was a particularly funny game. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that
that
game.
was quite a hilarious
It
game.
was quite a funny game. Yeah, it
But
was.
since then, Ten Hag's actually he started to get the buy-in. The players are buying into what he's doing, what he's talking
Yeah.
about, what he's teaching. You know, um, I think if you're into any of the Man United blogs or something like that, they'll shy on about the mitten standard, which is they have to finish top four and win a trophy.
Yes.
The squad's a work in progress. They've got some good young players, as you said, Garnacho coming through. But they've made some decent signings. They sniped Martinez.
Mm. Who has been a lot better than I thought. I think a lot of people gave him credit for, because he's apparently a 5 foot midget who could never do it
Yeah.
in the land of the giants that is the Premier League.
Well, that's the thing. Like, they sniped them from us. We wanted them at fucking fullback,
Mm.
um, potentially kind of fullback slash
Number
midfield.
six as well, isn't he? Is he number six as well?
Sort of, yeah. We wanted them
Yeah.
basically the way we play Zinchenko. It's how we wanted him to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas United came in, gazumped the deal and fielded him as a centre back to everybody's kind of sort of amazement. And at the start, it didn't work out too well, in particular at 4-0 at Brentford, when he was
Mm.
specifically targeted. But since then, now he's easily been their player so far, the player of the season. Um,
Mm.
don't think anybody's really not said that. I think
Yeah.
you look at Goldbridge in particular, just waxes lyrical about him. He's even stopped wearing all his Cristiano Ronaldo fucking hoodies and t-shirts, and he's got stuff with Martinez's name on them now. So that's the gold standard for a United player.
Goldbridge standards,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, the Goldbridge standard there for you.
Mm.
So but they've had some failures. player wise as well. Ronaldo being the key one, but Sancho's just a shadow. Like they paid 73 fucking million for him. He's done fuck
Hmm.
all. Rashford's only just getting back into it. Martial's, his injuries are coming back. Um, so yeah, it's
Yeah. And these are players that are going to have to rely on in those kind of alternate games to win them as well.
they really are.
So
But
pressure on
like
the
as I
on them.
said, again, football is a results driven game, and Jesus, they've had some. I'm like they've beaten Liverpool.
Mm.
Um, they've
And Arsenal.
Yeah, and Arsenal and Spurs. They beat Spurs
Yeah,
2-0. And Jesus, the victory over Spurs was absolute total domination. Like Spurs didn't
yeah,
get that was they absolutely got pounded. In fact, it was Lloris actually had one of his better games that day and kept the scoreline to somewhat respectable. But seriously, that was a 2-0 hammering. They were in no way, shape, or form were ever in that game.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, that's really boosted the team. And yeah, it depends. They've gone into this World Cup break on quite high spirits, and because they're confident now that for at least for the time being, Ten Hag is their guy.
Yeah, exactly. And again, United are bringing a lot of players to the World Cup, so it'll be interesting to see how that fares for them. Like, no. So again, we mentioned Liverpool. Then they kind of have kind of ended. Let's say they've rested on sixth place in the league, which is I think probably the highest we've been all season. Remarkably enough, it has just been that kind of year for us so far. Again, 6 wins out of 14 is kind of ludicrous by our own kind of internal standards over the last few years. But going by how the team has been playing, I think it's actually probably on par because the intensity hasn't been there. Like great loads of injuries in the squad that are now starting that will hopefully by the end of the World Cup will start to come out. I think the only one will actually sweating on would probably Jota, who reportedly has had a setback and might be out until February. We don't know. I don't think that's going to be the case though. But
He wasn't playing particularly too well before he got injured.
I think he was still ailing a little bit. I think there was still an issue there. I think he just came good at the Man City game and then it popped again, I think,
Yeah, Jota's
which is a
weird.
shame.
Jota's not really kind of a player that can come in and like score clutch goals or win you clutch matches.
He's a starter. He works the back line and then someone else might take
Yeah,
advantage.
he's more so of a player that needs like at least 3 90 minutes in a row before he's like, oh yeah, this is how I do it.
Yeah, and then he's on the crest of the wave then. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is kind of it's kind of the comparison to all the other players around them who kind of can do that now, and this will kind of come into my conversation. So you remember I mentioned about the likes of certain clubs bringing a lot of players to the World Cup. So I mentioned Manchester City, who I believe are bringing 17. I want to
17,
say.
yeah, you would say so.
Uh, I think Arsenal are bringing about 11 or so. United and Spurs, I think, are 12 or 13 around thereabouts. Again, I'm pulling these numbers come from me out of my arse here. But crucially, out of the top six, Liverpool are bringing only seven. Chelsea are in double figures. Everyone's in double figures in top five, top six outside of Liverpool, who are only bringing seven. And a lot of them are kind of like ones that are kind of convenient in a sense. Obviously, Salah and Luis Diaz, their countries didn't qualify. Joel Matip has famously never gone on with the Cameroon FA, so he doesn't play for his country. And Thiago bizarrely wasn't picked for Spain, which I think is hopefully going to bite them on the arse. But they have a very good midfield, so I think they'll be fine. But even then, the likes of like the fact that Trent got picked, I think was only because Reece James was injured. Otherwise, I don't think he would have travelled.
Yeah, he's not
So
he's not going to get any game time. Like they released the squad numbers for the England squad, and both like
yeah,
Trent and White have like the highest numbers. I was like,
which is
yeah,
clearly their role in
there's
the
like
team. You know
it's
that.
clear they're not gonna like if there's a dead rubber, they might get on they're gonna get on the pitch, but otherwise, like that's it.
Yeah.
They're
But
not.
it's the Gary Neville rule. You can't put him play him in a knockout round, even though they've appeared in seven finals in the last 3 years. No, it could never happen. But again, the interesting part about that is that the bulk of that team are staying put. They're staying domestically. They're recovering, obviously, and because they didn't have much of a preseason to begin with, and they've been given essentially the month off. They've got their fitness regimes and they're essentially getting a mini break until they do a bit of preseason in Dubai with yourselves and Milan and Leon. So we'll be seeing each other during the Christmas. But I think that's good. I think it gives this team a better springboard to actually get their shit together. And I don't feel half as pessimistic as I did, so we say, from the last time we spoke. when we were playing when we just had the loss against Leeds, because that was a real fucking stupid rope a dope game where we should have put them away, should have scored goals. We didn't, and we let them in. And that's football. That happens. Same with the Forest game. We just didn't do enough to win the game. I think in that time we've beaten Napoli, we've beaten Spurs, and we've beaten Southampton, and we just look and we've beaten Derby, but that's just the kids' game really comparatively, and the team just looks a lot better, and it's starting to come together, and they just needed a kind of run of games because a lot of it was confidence based, and is also starting to get the blend together up front. Because the conventional logic since the start of the season is that Nunes is the new centre forward. He's the new number 9. He is the one, the focal point of the team. But bizarrely, that the actual process of that has been kind of by accident, because we've lost Jota, we've lost Diaz, and of course, famously, Mane's gone sold off. So our left side is decimated. We don't have anyone else to play left. So we have a choice of either fielding Carvalho, who is a natural left winger, and playing there, or we slot Nunes to the left, which is conveniently how he plays for Uruguay. If he's up with Suarez and Cavani, if they're playing the three of them, he plays left and he bombards that flank. And he's actually been that's where he's been playing our best football for us, is essentially playing a little bit off center, a little bit off left, and he just skins the centre back on his inside, on his outside rather.
Yeah, he
And
runs the inside channel. Yeah.
he's chaos, and he's absolutely wonderful to watch, because I actually like I have no idea what he's going to do next, and neither does he. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Like again, he's so young, he's so raw. You're seeing him get better every game. Like the performance against Southampton was fantastic. Like genuinely, an individual performance, he was brilliant. And I know Southampton aren't the best defending team in the league either, but those are the type of games that demonstrates how good he can be, and how good I think he will be eventually. Um, in terms of the actual rest of the season, I think it'll just depend on what we do, almost like what we do in the off time, in the off peak time with Liverpool, because a lot of the players, like realistically, Henderson is not going to be a starter for the England team. I don't think Trent will be either. I think probably be Trippier who's going to get the nod over him, or Walker when he eventually passes fit. So I don't think they're going to be big features. The only player I can actually look at the Liverpool side who's going to have a big World Cup is probably Darwin and Konate, who is a surprise admission, but looks like he could be starting for France, because he's done so well in training. So like out of those two, like those two players,
Isn't Fabinho gonna get his game for Brazil?
probably, but shocking enough, he might be a centre back,
Mm. His
because
form,
he's
he's
kind
been
of
terrible this season.
he
His form
has,
has
and I
been
think
awful.
like keeping him centre back might be better off for him, because Brazil seem a bit married to the Casemiro Fred pairing, and they have tons of midfielders. In fairness, like Fabinho won't be lost in a sense, um, and Fabinho is like he tends to plug holes for his national team. He doesn't if he's not playing number 6, he'll play centre back, and if he's not playing centre back, he'll play right back. So he's not
Yeah.
he's a utility player for his country. Um, so yeah, so out of those 7, you're looking at perhaps the big three being obviously Van Dijk, one of them as well, like the Dutch captain. Like they could have good World Cups, they could have shit World Cups. You don't know. Either way, you could very well be looking at early returns. So it's a good break for us, and it could be a good break for the players. And it just depends on what we do then in the second half. We definitely need recruitment. I think that goes without saying. We have to just like cut our losses with the likes of the Oxlade and Keita players in midfield, and start getting someone specialized in that can plug those holes. Either
Yeah,
get a
because
number
they're
10
out of
in.
contract, aren't they?
Yeah, Keita's not signing at the minute, and I think Ox is out of contract anyway. So like that was never going to happen. I don't think. I think Ox is going to go either way. Keita was kind of in the middle if he could stay fit. He just isn't. So we had to let him go and cut our losses. So it definitely goes down to the recruitment. There's a few names that's been spoken about. We're also in the market for a kind of a deputy to Salah, which I think is fair enough, because Elliott's future is starting to look like it's in midfield, and I'm all for that because he's a fucking fantastic player in midfield. Um, so I'm cautiously optimistic about this, because I feel like we can definitely catch Spurs on current form, especially on post World Cup form as well. Um, Also that, and I don't see us beating Real Madrid in the Champions League. So I think our season is going to be predominantly domestic. It could be the cups, it could be the league, and getting us back into that fourth place finish. If we can target third or fourth, I think it would be happy enough. But we shall see. Um, that was a bit of a tangent. But however, we move on then to seventh and eighth, who currently are Brighton and Chelsea, the Graham Potter teams. So we say before Potter and after Potter, if you will. Um, like Brighton's like position in the league has been predominantly because of how strong they started under Potter, which perhaps is hopefully a good omen for Chelsea themselves. But that being said, Chelsea's team season has been quite bad, by their own standards. Tuchel, the wheels fell off that very, very quickly. I think the Leeds game where he got tonked 3-0, 4 I think it was transformative in that. It just fell apart for them. And there was a bit of a bounce where with Potter, but I think it's starting to come off the wheels again. Uh, but surely they would be giving him a lot more time considering like how many days of training he would have to set up a tactical side? Like very little. Like this is his preseason now to start setting up stuff for their season, and half of his team are in Qatar. So he's kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place, isn't he?
Yeah, no, well, it's kind of odd. Just a wee bit on that. Like, it's not just like
Hmm.
Potter that they sniped from Brighton. They got most of his staff, and their last season's player of the season in Cucurella.
Hmm.
And if you believe recent reports, they're also making googly eyes at their head of recruitment. So it's just
Yes.
like the fuck, like you're just asset stripping another club, like lads. Which points, I think, to a complete lack of ideas on Chelsea's behalf. Like the
Hmm.
fact that they're not coming up with anything themselves, they're just looking at another team and going, "Hey, those guys do it really well. Let's buy all of it."
Capo,
And
yeah.
that's just it, you know. It's fucking crazy. Like it really is absolutely insane. And fair play to Brighton. They went high risk. They got the Zerbi, Roberto De Zerbi in, which I cannot believe. De Zerbi was talking like he was being touted as like the successor to Max Allegri at
Hmm.
Juve. He showed up at fucking Brighton, which is no offense to Brighton, but I was like, Jesus Christ, lads, how the fuck did you snag him? And yeah, he's just immense. He's an immense attacking coach, and I think when
Hmm.
he gets that team clicking in, they've got a really good core. Yeah, Potter did leave them very well, as was demonstrated when they
Brighton smashed Chelsea.
when Brighton absolutely drilled them 4-1.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I'm delighted with what I see with Brighton. Um, they've got so many good players that like they had a bit of a setback against Fulham where they just absolutely could not handle Mitrovic for whatever
Hmm.
reason. But no, that midfield's clicking over with Grosh. Um, it's been really really good. Casado has been brilliant. Trossard as well. Holy
Oh.
shit! Like he's gonna get poached. He's got to go in the summer. Like there's no he's just playing too fucking well
Hmm.
to stay as a Brighton player. If he's not going in the summer, he's definitely going by next season if he keeps us up. Holy
Yeah.
shit. Um, yeah, but it's just been brilliant. Chelsea, no, it's been not that good. They've spent the most out of any team ever, ever. They spunked 250 million, um, and sacked the manager after a month. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's a great start.
And it's such a disjointed team as well. Even before the season, they needed to smoothen out that team, and they've actually just kind of made it more amorphous by bringing in Sterling, who plays in a particular way, Aubameyang, who's so rigid, and they still can't find defined positions for Havertz or Pulisic or all these other players. It's just they have such a weird hodgepodge of stuff. It's like a coddle.
Yeah,
It
it's
makes no sense.
it's crazy, and Potter's just he seems determined to use his wing back system, but
Mm,
they've no specialist wing backs because both their first choice wing backs are injured.
yeah,
In Reece James
and
and
Chilwell. Yeah.
Chilwell, they're both injured. So, but then he's playing like really weird players there. Like he's playing Sterling at like at wing.
Loftus Cheek at right wing back is an interesting shout. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Sterling, yeah, like interesting. That word has to do a lot of
That's
work.
a word. It's doing a lot of work. I'll
No,
admit.
and
Yeah, yeah.
it's his poor wing back choices. I'm like, is putting Sterling at left wing back was one of the main reasons why they got absolutely tonked 4-1 by Brighton, because they just ran everything down that channel because he was
Mm,
not tracking back and helping out Cucurella, who was the left-sided centre back.
yeah.
And they're just like, ha ha ha, ha motherfucker. So it's just like acres of space. And just Cucurella was sat there. And he's also not been playing even well. But when he's isolated like that and he's getting no support, he's fucked. So even if he was playing particularly well, it wouldn't really
Mm,
matter a whole lot. But he's also he's compounding being isolated but playing complete shit, which Brighton fans are just absolutely fucking delighted with, and
yeah.
everybody else is as well. I mean, it really says something that the player of the year so far has been a 38-year-old Thiago Silva. I'm like, when we were absolutely drilling them 1-0, I understand how that may sound, but like it was such a fucking lopsided match. He was
Mm,
absolutely by far and away the only person at that back who looked like they knew what the fuck they were doing. He was making crucial blocks, he was throwing himself in, he was making interceptions, he was brilliant. I was looking at him going, this guy's 38? Fuck. It's like 2 years off his 40th fucking birthday, and he's playing really fucking well.
mm,
Um they're lucky also they've got a late resurgence from Kepa. Kepa seems to actually have discovered how to be a goalkeeper again. Um so it'll be interesting to see the dynamic between him and Mendy when Mendy comes back. Um,
mm.
but yeah, I mean, Jesus, I don't know about Chelsea. I really don't. But you were saying there, like they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna sack Potter. But then again, I'm not really sure because Potter is a project manager, and
Yeah.
Chelsea have never had a project manager before.
This is it. Like it's a very different proposition. It's a different Chelsea and a different manager. So you either give them the time and prove that you're basically different to the other autarch that was there running the club, or you revert to the mean and try and switch them out for someone else in the market. And that kind of relies on basically working on another team's failure. Like, can you like if a Simeone or an Allegri comes up on the market, or can Chelsea like resist temptation and press the red button? Or do they rely on the player and the person that they essentially entrusted this project with? You
Well,
know,
given the amount of Brighton's and Potter's backroom staff they've signed, like if they pull the trigger on him, they're gonna have to pull the trigger on like the entire coaching staff.
about eight other people. Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, so like that big red button's got 8 other buttons fucking attached to it as well.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
it's just people that say that like he's been hampered by injuries to key players. It's like he spent a quarter of a fucking billion.
Hmm.
No, you don't get to say that. You don't. Oh well, we've lost our one wing back in both positions. We're like, what the fuck? Why are you spending our money on them? What the fuck? Like, the fuck out of here. You can no backups. Piss off. Like
Yeah.
you've spent more
You've
than
done
anyone else
plenty as it is.
ever.
Yeah.
You could have gotten back. The fact that you didn't get back, the fact that you spent your money badly does not mean that your bad luck is
Hmm.
is like, oh, this is totally unforeseen. No, you should have planned better. Um, yeah, it's not been going good for them, and it's just brilliant to see.
Yeah. Exactly. Next down the league then is a triplet of London-based teams. We'll start off at the bottom, which is 11th Crystal Palace. These are all separate, big goal difference, by the way. Brentford are currently top in the top 10 after a fantastic result against Man City. Thank you very much, Ivan Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm sure you bet your house on that one, but don't pish. And then ninth then is Fulham. And Neil, I'll ask you the question: are Fulham the surprise package of this season?
um, well, no, I don't, I
Okay,
don't think so. I think Brighton are.
okay, fair enough.
Sorry, by surprise, yeah, no, I think Brighton are. Brighton are definitely my surprise pack. Fulham are close. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, who would have had Fulham in the top 10 by the time the World Cup kicked around? Nobody.
Hmm.
Um, but like, I look at Brighton and I think, wow, that's a real positive surprise. I'm like,
Mm.
um, they've just been great. But Fulham have been really, really fucking good. Um, Pereira and Mitrovic in particular. I'm like, to be honest with you, I did not think that they'd get a song out of Mitrovic. I really didn't think he'd play very well.
There's been so many false dawns with him in the Premier League. Like you're
Yeah,
presuming to see. Yeah.
he's just that prodigal son that just keeps fucking off and coming back, and you're like,
Mm.
man, just stay or go. Like, like a real shitter get off the pot. He's decided, nah, man, I'm gonna shit,
Yeah.
and he's been shitting on defenses for quite a while. Like, and I will
I think the difference is that
stop
he's
this
just playing a
analogy.
better team now, isn't he? Like compared to the Fulham team that kind of rocked up last time they were in the Premier League, they had a very like a immature midfield. You know, like they obviously they recruited very badly and they never got the players in. But this year, like they've had their transfers have worked out. Like Bernd Leno has been a vast improvement in goal, and João Palhinha in
Oh,
midfield has been brilliant,
I,
absolutely brilliant player.
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of him. He's actually starting to play really, really well.
Mm,
You mentioned that beforehand. They had a really immature midfield. He was also an immature player as well.
yeah, very
At
true.
that point, he didn't play. He didn't definitely didn't play nearly as good as he has been now. Like he's a really refined, excellent, very focused performances that he's pulling out now routinely. And yeah, he does have a better team. He's got holy shit, like Paulinia. I'm like they only got him for 20 million quid. I was like,
Over
Jesus,
27 million, yeah, they got a pretty bit of a deal on him, yeah.
like that's fucking that might be bargain of the season now. Come to
Yeah.
depending on how they continue towards the end, people might be going, yeah, that's the sign, that's the bargain, that's the
Yeah.
bargain signing. But yeah, like fucking hell, like they've been really, really fucking good. Like they've not had too many blips. Um, the Newcastle game was pretty bad, but then they were down to 10 men after what 10 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, pretty much. Like,
Yeah,
um,
essentially, yeah.
it's just crazy. So like, it's really, really good. I mean, they've got a lot of players who are looking to really, make themselves known again, either comeback kids or like
Hmm.
Mitrovic or people who are really looking to make their mark and it's just been really good. And Silva's been knitting it all together really fucking
Yeah.
well.
He's at I think he's at the finally cracking that code that I think he was missing a little bit. Like there was always his teams always played very, very good like good football. But there's always something missing, and it was either like the set pieces or the marking or the defensive shape, whatever it was, especially when he was at Everton. Because my God, towards the end, that Everton team used to hemorrhage goals. Um, but now I think he just has defenders now he trusts a lot more, or maybe he's just worked in that part of the coaching, and now it looks a lot better. It's hard to say. I mean, we're not on the pitch with him, so we don't know. I think he's got a lot more physical as well. That team is a lot more. There's a lot more steel in that Fulham side than there was last time they were here. And some of it's just not down to coaching, but it's just down to preparation. They are now more ready for the Premier League. And I've kind of capitalized a bit on the drop levels of a lot of other teams as well, especially in the midfield. Because as we go down the further down the table, what is very evident is that the midfield, if you will, the mid table has completely collapsed, and it's just allowed the likes of Fulham and perhaps even Bournemouth to have capitalized on that and kind of given themselves a fighting chance. Um, the one team I think has kind of survived that collapse has probably been Brentford because as very much the literal mid-table team here at the moment, they just looked really, really solid. But again, one of the quirks of the league table this season is that they are 6 points away from the drop zone, which is bizarre to say for a team that sits in 10th. You know, you could say the same for Palace, Villa, Leicester, all the way we go down. Like it's gonna be a serious fucking war for relegation this season.
Oh, well, like, yeah, I'm like when you look at the table, like outside the top four, right? So ignoring the top four, right? So that's ignoring Arsenal, City, Newcastle, and Spurs, right? So
Mm.
from fifth downwards, so from fifth to 20th, only two teams out of those 15 have a positive goal difference.
Hmm.
And that's Brighton and Liverpool.
Yeah,
And out of the remaining teams, three of them have a zero goal difference, zero, and everything else is negative.
yeah,
It's like it's holy shit. Like it's not just the mid table has collapsed. It's most of the table has just decided.
yeah. It's like the bottom has fallen out or something. It's
Yeah,
bizarre.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
just completely up in the air. Like somebody is literally just throwing all the chips up in the air, and it's crazy. Like,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's gonna be a mental. I have no idea how this is gonna fucking end. Like this is just
Yeah,
absolutely
it looks so
crazy.
chaotic down the bottom of the table, which is not, which again it's nice for us to talk about because funny it's not just about the top six; it's also what's happening down below. Like Palace have kind of got their heads above water at the minute. 11th, they have the extra game as well to play, so they seem fine. But then there's other stories kind of down the table as well. Like Villa now 12th after back to back wins, and they got rid of Steven Gerrard and replaced him with the vastly better Unai Emery, who it's good to see him back in English football. It's good to see him given another chance in a sense. because like if you speak to anyone in Spanish football, they'll tell you that he's a mercurial coach who's absolutely brilliant at what he does.
Well,
It's just
he's really, really good at coaching teams that have Villa in the name.
that's very true. And he's
Sevilla,
actually got the yeah,
Villarreal, now at
yeah.
Aston Villa. You know, he's been really, I mean, and all those three teams have he's been really good with them.
Hmm.
Um,
But it is a type of club that he does like managing in a sense. It's a team that punches above their weight, that overperforms, that kind of has that kind of siege mentality at home as well. It makes complete sense to take over a team like Villa. And for the owners of the team who kind of want to do a bit of a Todd Bowley-esque money ball system here, then this is exactly the type of manager you want to get because it's almost like a luxury to get a coach this good at Aston Villa.
well, sort of, yeah, it is as well. But also, you thinking it's for the second straight season they've had to change their manager by October
Mm,
or November whenever he was signed. So I don't know. Like they've not had a good start to the season. Their 3-0 loss to Fulham was woeful.
it was terrible. Yeah.
It was absolutely awful. So, a lot of the players are underperforming.
Mm.
McGinn hasn't really been playing very well. Coutinho has been a
Which was
washout.
compounded by the fact he was made the club captain, which was in hindsight a horrendous call by Gerrard.
Oh, so terrible. Like, it was so awful. Especially when you consider that Mings has basically been their best fucking player so
Yeah,
far. Like, he's held his shit together right at the back there. So, um, it's a very expensive squad as well. Like, that's the weird thing.
mm.
When you look at that Villa team, it's quite a costly.
They've overspent a lot on players,
Yeah.
massively. Yeah,
And yeah, I'm like, they no, 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 no. They didn't. What have they made any statement wins? They really haven't. But
Man
they beat.
United is what I'd say. Man United and the draw against Man City, I would actually consider a statement as well. They
Yeah,
held
yeah,
them
yeah.
to a decent draw, and yeah,
That
the
was
victory
Emery's
against
first
Man
game in
City,
charge. Was the Man U 3-1 against Man U? Yeah,
and they mauled them,
yeah.
absolutely mauled Man United.
They beat
They're one of
Brentford
those teams where
4-0 as well. They beat Brentford 4.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
Like it's one of those teams where like if you're going against Villa Park and you're playing against them, side, you're just going like they could be that type of team. But then you could say that about half the Premier League table at this stage, especially with some of the managerial changes being made at the minute. Um, so yeah, like I mean, obviously Villa are optimistic. Leicester are now back as well. It would appear, back
Leicester
from the
are
dead.
indeed back. It's official.
Yes, it's mad. Like they were abject at the start
Oh,
of the
they were
season.
fucking terrible. Now, on the whole, for this whole half of the season, they're still terrible. Like taken as a whole, but my God,
Hmm.
starts the season go like this was fucking tripe.
Yeah, it was, and again, we had made the point of the fact that they hadn't replaced Schmeichel in, and they were kind of putting their hopes on Danny Ward, who has been kind of the bridesmaid for about 10 years of his career. Liverpool admittedly part of that as well, but he's now getting clean sheets. They've obviously done enough kind of like tweaking defensively to get the balance right, and they're getting wins. It helps when you have Madison in the form of his life. It helps when you have uh, some level of like their goals aren't even coming from strikers; they're coming from midfield. It's coming from Tielemans and Madison and the talent they have there. And like Vardy's coming in, obviously, but he's getting out of date in years now, and the attack still needs improvement. Ian Nacho doesn't have the same output as last year. Daka has been a big disappointment for them for Leicester personally, because you're hoping he'd be a bit of a world beater, and it hasn't really panned out that way yet. Again, keyword there is yet. Um, but for Leicester, like at least they have got a few wins under their belt, and their season's looking a bit more respectable because it wasn't looking good for Rodgers
No, it
at the
wasn't.
start of the season.
Since the interlull, it's been better. But prior to
Yeah.
the interlull, like people were like, yeah, he's definitely in the gun sights.
Hmm.
He was also starting to shit in the club publicly. He was starting to publicly go and chat shit about them in interviews and everything. And that's when you know a manager's circling the fucking drain.
Yes.
So but yeah, like it's it's starting to it's starting to. I'm not saying it's going to start to click, but it's just starting to be less shit.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And they're behind ahead of Bournemouth, who remarkably are 14th in the table. And again, I think this just kind of epitomizes how strange this bottom of the table is because you would think that compared, like on paper, Bournemouth probably have the weakest side by a country mile. And they are currently have a caretaker manager in Gary O'Neill, who has not had any Premier League experience as a manager or indeed as a head coach at all. Then you had this very famous riff with Scott Parker, who obviously burned his bridges after the 9-0 loss to Liverpool. Somehow steadied the ship. They scored a healthy couple of wins, like 4 wins this season is pretty good for Bournemouth. And if you're to believe the rumors, they're in talks with Marcelo Bielsa for him to take over, which is even more bizarre to say. That he could be on the South Coast, sitting on his bin again. But is this a team that's Bielsa capable? Like, is it a possibility? I can't see it myself. I mean, I don't know what he would see in that team, or indeed what Bournemouth could see in Bielsa, because like this is a season where burnout's going to happen, and you bring in a manager who, as much as I adore Bielsa, I think he's one of the best in the world. He runs his players into the ground, especially compared to other coaches who do the same. This is not the season you want to bring him in, is it?
Well, it's a decently young team, you know.
Mm.
Um, they've got places like Solanke is pretty good. Tavernier's been their little live wire as well.
Tavernier has been very good, yeah.
Yeah, Tavernier, whatever, however the fuck.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm like, in all fairness to Bielsa, and I said there's the most amount of respect to the man. You can't really make things a whole lot worse. You know,
True. This is true.
does it get worse than getting absolutely hammered 9-0? Don't think so.
Ask Graf Hasenhüttl. It's worth to him several times.
Ask Hasenthal. So, like, I think, like it had to change. Something had to change there. Now,
Yeah.
it just couldn't keep going on the way it was. It really, really
Yeah.
couldn't. Um, I think what was the last game that he lost was they got beaten by Forest 3-2 or something like that.
Mm.
Oh no, they came from behind to beat Forest 3-2.
Yeah.
Um, and that was just after they fucking sacked Parker. Because it was when they beaten they've got a good team. I don't know. It's just I don't watch a tremendous amount of Bournemouth. I'll probably watch a wee bit more now that Bielsa's there because I just want to see what he does. But
Mm.
yeah, they're in a relegation fight, and they're trying to play all their cards early, so they're setting themselves up
Mm.
because they're just hoping that everybody else falls away around them falls away, and they're just going to be left going. Yeah, we're going to
Well,
swan it.
that's just
Like,
it. Like, I mean, when you look at the teams that are currently you could identify are in the, like, naturally, I'd still put Bournemouth in the relegation scrap, but you could say it's still up from, say, from Villa downwards. But the teams behind them are Leeds, West Ham, Everton, currently teetering. Like West Ham, you could say are victims of a slow start again. Like, almost certainly, if you go by Moyes, there's no really kind of any kind of major panic in that sense, especially considering in the Conference League they've been absolutely fine. They just haven't got the wins really to back it up. Still a good team, West Ham. There's no denying that. It's just that they've just been a bit of a slow starters. But Leeds have been an interesting one for me because Leeds are a very young team in a relegation scrap, managed by someone who doesn't seem to wouldn't have the skill set for relegation scrap, and yet are picking up wins when they can. Like, obviously the win against Liverpool was a massive one. They realistically should have beaten Spurs, but then they forgot how to defend and conceded four. Um, and they have weird games like this where they're better against like stronger competition. Like, they're kind of this weird. They're such a counter-punching team that they have to invite pressure on and hope that their defenders don't concede, which is risky, especially for a team that, like, realistically could get relegated.
yeah, at the
Um,
beginning of the season, they were saying that another relegation battle just couldn't happen. It was like that was impossible, and
mm,
it seemed quite hubristic now because they're very much in that. So yeah, I mean, fuck knows what's going on here. Just the team's just been massively underperforming. Marsh seems constantly on tenterhooks as to whether or not he's going to get sacked from day to day. Um, in particular going into that Liverpool game, like they were just
yeah,
like,
like, if he lost that game, I think he could have been gone. The fact that he got the win, I think, kind of gave him a stay of execution almost.
yeah. But like they've played good against the team. Like they've played good against Chelsea. They played good against us, Arsenal. They played well against Liverpool.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's just it's difficult to see this Leeds team. I'm like it's weird. There's a lot of grit and they can dig in and win, but can they do it over a full season? I don't see them doing it. You know,
That's the question. Yeah, that's the
um,
question.
I don't see so. I'm like, but they've had like they've had some real dreadful moments,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's just crazy. I'm like, they lost the Spurs. I'm like, they went into the break losing 4-3 to Spurs, but after that was off the back of the wins against Bournemouth and Liverpool. But they lost 2-0. The 2-0 to Leicester was abject, and then lost 3-2 to Fulham. So I think that's the bad thing about it as well. They're losing the teams around them.
Hmm.
They're playing really
Yeah.
well against the top six teams, but they're like, nah, mate, you're in a relegation battle. You need to be beating, Everton. You need to be
You need
beating,
to be the teams around you. That's the
yeah.
crucial thing. Yeah.
Um, Depends on whether or not they'll do that. I don't see it. Yeah.
It's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one. Everything you mentioned there as well. Like now they're a point above the drop zone at the minute, and they they looked okay for say the middle part of this kind of sprint to the finish, but then towards the end, the team really started to lose very stupid games, is what I would call it, where they just didn't show any quality, they didn't show any kind of fire. The grit and steel that they had kind of set out from the start of the season was starting to rust a bit, and again, strange enough, the fans again turning on the players, and again, I think I showed you the clip of the fans having a row with the players, and I said this is the third year this has happened, right? I'm
Yeah,
not just
that was
imagining this.
this when they got punked 3-0 by
Hmm.
Bournemouth, wasn't it? It was Bournemouth who beat them.
I think it was Bournemouth, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it's been crazy. I mean, this was going to be a bit of a transitional season for them. Although the thing is, what they were transitioning from was a pointless, worthless team. What are they transitioning into? I don't know.
That's again the burning question because they're in that midfield collapse. Like they are I think the epitome of that because they this steep decline they had last season and like the decline is still there. The team has not
Fuck, the
improved in any
decline was
sense.
almost traumatic last season for
Yeah,
them.
and it's still there. Like look, like they haven't improved on the league position that much. They're still in the relegation fight, and Lord knows what's going to happen in the second half of the season because it's going to be a shootout, and they could lose out. Any of those teams could lose out. You know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a realistic game for Everton I think a lofty game for Everton this season was not to be in a relegation battle. I don't
And
know
here
if
we
they'll even
are.
I don't know if they'll even manage that. Um, there's nothing really in that midfield. They
Hmm.
just constantly get overrun. Um, I wow, I don't see anything improving for them. They spent hugely and done nothing. Um, few shining lights. I'm just the redeployment of Iwobi has been decent enough for them. He's played really well
Yeah,
for them,
he has actually.
and
Yeah, to his credit.
Onana has been really good for them as well. He's starting to settle into that central that good midfield role. But Christ, like there's just no energy in that team. It's hilarious. Like it's really really bad. Like
Yeah.
I don't see where they're going. I don't see how they'll get there. There's just no plan. That team it's headless. It's completely pointless. Like it's worth like
Hmm.
fuck.
And they have a real danger because the three teams that are beneath them at the moment, the drop zone is currently Nottingham Forest, who again probably at the start of the season you would expect it would be in that kind of fight anyway. But they have scored a couple of wins this season, famously one against Liverpool, and they won their opening game as well. And um, they have lost quite a lot of games. Just the defense kind of went a bit wayward, and they started to kind of get the balance right again this towards the end of the break here. But then two teams underneath them, Southampton and Wolves. Wolves currently bottom of the table. But both those teams have now changed their managers. So Southampton have brought in the Luton boss Nathan Jones to replace Rob Hasenhuttl, and then Bruno Lage, who again this team we kind of earmarked like even last year having a serious sparse of goals, and that's kind of come back to haunt him now. And Julian Lopetegui has kind of been deployed almost to get this team scoring again. And with the dearth of like attacking talent as they have, Wolves should not have an issue scoring goals. you'd expect it to be a lot more open and attacking, but it just hasn't happened. And since, of course, they've lost Connor Cody, they've now lost the solidity in defense. So it kind of beggars belief then for what happens to these two teams. Like, obviously, new managers' bounces are a thing. Nathan Jones is a fantastic coach in his own right, but he's untested in the Premier League. And Lopetegui, we know from his time in Spain how good he can be, but it's down to whether he can get a tune out of these two teams. And if any of these teams catch fire, then the likes of Everton, Leeds, and Bournemouth are going to be nervously looking over their shoulder because this is when they start getting caught.
Well, to a degree, but I think Southampton have a worse job of it because they've already lost to an awful lot. Like we stated earlier on, that you have to beat the
Mm.
teams around you. Southampton have already lost to an awful lot of the teams around them.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, they've. I think they've lost to like 8 of the 10 teams around them.
Hmm.
So like, it just comes that right. They've got the replays of all of them, but then they have to play all the topper team, the
Top teams as well.
top
Yeah.
teams as well. I was like, I don't see how they're going to do that. I don't see how they're going to be. They're good.
Mm.
Like I'm like, they beat Chelsea 3-1. But hey, you know, but my
Who
God,
hasn't, to be
yeah,
fair?
who hasn't? Like that's when you look at the plight of Chelsea in over the course of this half of the season. Like
Mm.
that's not actually really something to stand about. So it's a bit of a false dawn there. Um,
Mm. That's true.
Ward Prowse has been good, but then he's always good. You know, um, Perraud.
Pero's been good, yeah.
He's been good.
Pero's come in as the kind of the debutise for Walker Peters, who obviously got injured. So, he's been quite decent as well.
Yeah,
But
he's back.
again, it's a team with a lot of potential, but they're just in a relegation fight they didn't want to be in, and that's kind of the issue they have, is that they don't really have a enough experienced head to get them through this. I think.
Yeah, no, it was awful. Like, but I I don't see how they didn't think they were going to be in a relegation battle when, or the Chelsea result aside, when they just played such abject football. Like
Mm.
they've been really, really terrible in every fucking game. Most of the games that they've played, they've been just terrible. They've deserved to lose every game that they've lost.
Yeah,
Um, it, I think the I think it was when they lost 1-0 to Villa, it was McGinn who said in his post match interview that had he been watching the game on television, he'd have found the remote and switched it off. You
yeah.
know, and he's on the winning team.
He's on the winning team. Yeah.
It's like fuck off. What the hell? Like, so wow, I'm like, yeah, Southampton have a far more precarious position. They're in a far more precarious position than Wolves.
Yeah.
Wolves, on the other hand, like, yeah, like you said, you look at that team and you think there has to be goals here, but they've never scored any. They've never
Mm.
scored a huge amount of goals. Um, they're far too reliant. It's considering the sheer amount of players that they've signed. They're just far too reliant on one or two of them,
Mm.
Jimenez and Neves. Um, it's terrible. Like, shifting onto Wolves now. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking, what they wanted from the season. Did you? Do you? Like, it's kind of like similar with Everton. Like when people start saying like, "Oh, Everton, this is a transitional season," you're like, transitional. Okay, I get that. Right, I understand
Mm.
it's a transitional season. Been through a few of them. What are you transitioning into though? And nobody can give me an answer to that. Same with
Yeah,
Wolves.
it's
Wolves
strange.
had,
They were kind of like buying to stand still almost.
yeah, and same with Wolves. I was like, what were you hoping to get out of the season? Like, where were you aiming to be? Like, where were you going? And
Mm.
they're now fucking rock bottom. Don't see how they're getting off of that. They just do not score goals. And now now, as you said, they're shipping loads. I mean,
Yeah.
like, they were whopped 4-0 by Leicester at home. Um, it's crazy. Like
Mm.
it's really really fucking good. Like it's sorry, it's really really poor. Um, it's so awful. Wolves are Wolves just need people to start click. They need the players to start playing. They signed that Matheus Nunes. They have their own Nunes.
They
Um,
do, yeah. Mateus Nunes, who we were in for as well, funny enough.
Juice Mateus
Yeah.
Nunes, yeah. He he needs to click. He needs to get in. He
Mm.
needs to start going in there because they're fucking awful.
But that's the point. Is it kind of it doesn't really make any sense why a team like a midfield three of Ruben Neves, Gian Moutinho, and Mateus Nunes is a midfield that half the Premier League would kill for, and these Wolves players, this team of Wolves essentially have a discount on these type of players. Of obviously the Royal Portuguese and Jorge Mendes's little kind of fingertips all over the squad.
Yeah,
But even the players they have brought in, like they need competition for Raul Jimenez, and the player they did bring in, Saza Halilovic, like broke it, like snapped his ACL the first game in. Like I know you can't kind of go over for that, but they have other attackers there. Adama, you have Pedro Neto, you have all these players, and Gonzalo Guedes as well, who I forgot signed this season as well. Like they have plenty of strikers, they have plenty of forwards and midfielders and playmakers. What is stopping them? You know, kind of way, and that's what I can't understand whether it was a tactical thing or just the players don't seem that up for it. You know, kind of way.
well, it's also like they're just poorly run. Like
Mm.
you were saying about Nunes there, that like midfield three of him, Jimenez, and fucking Neves,
Coutinho and Neves, yeah.
and Coutinho Neves. Like that'd be a midfield three that people would kill for, but they don't really play them there. They play him as an
Mm.
attacking mid. They're not playing him in his preferred role.
Yeah.
It's like what are you doing? Like, I mean, the whole transfer shit over Marquinhos. When
Mm.
we poached Marquinhos off them, it's awful. Like, I mean, like they just wanted them to. They were like, right, we'll sign you, but then we'll send you to our feeder club, Grasshoppers. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, okay, then, well, then the deal's off. And they're like, what? Why not bring him? Why not bring him to the fucking club, you ticks? Have him just playing your reserves. And then he goes to
Mm.
Arsenal. And we're like, yeah, we'll send him to the under 23s. We'll play him in the cups and the leagues and stuff like that. And he's a good player. He's a really, really, he's just brilliant. Like,
Mm.
um, oh my God, they've just had some fucking they've just had some fucking really bad ones. I mean, you were saying Kalajic, Sasa Kalajic,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck. I mean, his game against Southampton was a disaster. He goes
Yeah.
down holding his knee after half an hour. The medical team go, yeah, he's good to play on. Then he goes off after half time. As it turns
Mm.
out, he's torn his ACL. What? Um, so like they don't have a first team striker because Kalajic and Jimenez are injured, right? Kalajic is out for
Yeah.
the season. Jimenez is injured. I don't know what he did to himself.
He's in the squad for the World Cup, so he should be fit for Mexico, and then should be back realistically
Oh
for
yeah,
Wolves
you had
international.
hernia, right? This is the funny thing, right?
Yes.
Right, he was diagnosed with a sport hernia whilst he was away with the international team. Right, the medical team at Wolves missed, so he's now currently sat in Mexico. Where he goes to the odd Club America game because
Yeah.
like you're like, no, I'm not going back to those fucking idiots because they missed his hernia. Like the fucking his national team doctors are like, how did these guys miss this? These guys are fucking
Mm.
idiots. You know, so without a first team striker, they were forced to sign Costa, and
Mm.
who hadn't played a game in 8 months, and he's picked up more red cards and he has scored goals. You know,
That
and if you want the
was
crowning,
always going to be the case, though. In fairness, was he ever going to hit the ground running? Like he was going to
no, but
fucking
like
headbutt the ground,
fucking
but
hell,
never.
like
Yeah.
you expect them to do something. I mean, they barely played him as well, so they're not really playing him even. So like he's
No.
not got the chance to do anything. And
Mm.
if you want a crowning turd in the water pipe of how poorly planned that was, the other name on the short list to sign was Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
What? When Andy Carroll is the answer, what question are you fucking asking? All right, it's awful. Like it's awful. You know, same with Pedro Neto. I mean, like, the fucking medical team at Wolves was awful. I mean, like
Mm.
Pedro Neto hit the deck against West Ham. He was barely able to walk, and the medical team were like, "No, he's good to go." Like, are you sure you said this with the last guy? Like, no, he's good to go. He's promptly subbed off because you barely walk. Turns out he's wrecked his ankle ligaments and he's now out of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Fucking what? Oh man, like it's just crazy. I think going to the City game, like, yeah, we're gonna go for this. Nathan Collins decided to fucking kung fu kick Jack Grealish.
I don't blame him. In fairness, it is Jack Grealish. Like,
You know, but, right, but when you look at that game, right, you're thinking, right, so Collins has decided to kung fu kick Jack Grealish, who has an eminently kickable face, right?
yes,
After 20 minutes, right? He doesn't do this like in the 89th minute where he's just like, right, I'm going to have this fuck. No, 20 minutes in, bang, nails him, Cantona style, gets sent off. What did they do? They have Ruben Neves playing defense. I was like,
hmm
they have two centre backs on the bench. Sub one of them on. They never do. It's
no,
crazy. You're like, oh God, what are you fucking doing? This is hilarious.
yeah, it's a very strange one. So to wrap up this recap of the podcast, then of
Oh,
the
sorry,
I mean
and
the Premier
also
League.
on the
Sorry.
thing of their fucking medical team, Jose Sa has been playing with a broken wrist for fucking months. The goalkeeper has broken wrist. He's been playing with a broken wrist for months. Why? Because they didn't sign a backup. I'm like, fuck.
Oh,
Like
desperate.
it's
Are they
they're
your banter club this season, Neil? It
they
sounds like
will be my
you
banter club. I will do a thing on them. I must get everything together.
do,
Uh,
yeah.
because like there's loads of things like hilarious like signings like one of their loanees like Vitinha, and when they were after like they've been after Renato Sanchez for like since the Stone Age,
Yes.
and both of them go to Paris Saint Germain. Like
Mhm.
what how you know it's fucking ridiculous. Like they sent out their head scout to Argentina to sign Enzo Fernandez, you
Mm.
know. Um, then they pulled out of the much like with Marquinhos, right? So they pulled out because he wanted to see out the Copa Libertadores with his club, which ends in
Mhm.
October. You know, so
Yeah.
it's not as if like he was like, "Oh, I'll see us in February." It's like, no, that's the end of the Brasileiro season.
Mm.
Um, so Wolves pulled out, but then his club got knocked out of the first round of the Copa Libertadores, and then he went and signed for Benfica. And now he's got Real Madrid. Real Madrid are scouting him. And you're just like, oh, guys, like, did you flew your head scout all the way over there, pulled out a deal, and now he's wanted by Real Madrid? It's like they
It's fabulous.
they reckon he's now worth six times what they would have paid for him.
Hmm.
It really is like there's lots of banter. There's lots of banter going around here.
Mm.
This is just
It does seem like a bit of a basket case this year. A quiet, a surprising basket case, you'd say. But then the bottom of the table and like a win will not save them. So maybe there's a reason for that. Um, but yeah, like out of if you were to identify the three teams that you do actually think are in trouble for relegation at this point of the season, because again, the World Cup essentially serves as a kind of a reset for everyone, especially at the bottom of the table. Who do you identify as the three most in danger? Do you think Wolves will get out of it, or do you think there's other clubs that are going to get worse?
oh, I think no, I think Wolves. Yeah, I definitely think Wolves. Like
You don't think Lopetegu is going to make a big difference there?
I don't know. There's a lot of ingrained shit there. You
Mm.
know, there's a lot of shit. Um, maybe he'll get through it. I don't know. Um, but no, I don't think so. I think it'll be Wolves, not Forest. Maybe Everton will go down. Maybe. Yeah, maybe Everton or Southampton. I reckon, yeah. Out of the current bottom four, I reckon three of them are going to be the ones going down. I don't see any massive changes at the bottom of the table. There's just no goals. And to be
Mm.
honest with you, I'm looking at the bottom four, right? I'm just going to go with three, with the lowest goals for total, which is Everton, Forest, and Wolves. Wolves have only
Mm.
scored 8 goals this season. Holy
They've
shit!
actually the lowest goal scorers in England at the
Yeah,
moment. Yeah.
it's cruel. Like it's awful.
Mm.
But yeah, I reckon they'll go that because like if you don't score goals, you're boned.
Yep, that's fair
Even
enough.
if you
That's fair
ship
enough.
load, like even if you ship loads of them,
Mm.
just take a look at Bournemouth. Like Bournemouth have like a goal difference minus 14, but they're 14th. You know,
Yeah,
and you look at Leeds, West Ham, and Everton, like that's -4, -5, -6. So they've a yeah, that's combined. It's almost they're one off the combined three teams beneath them,
yeah.
and they're still above them because oh no, they've scored goals. They've scored 18 of them.
Hmm.
They win games. So like, it's just yeah. I think Wolves are fucked, and I think Forest are fucked.
Okay. Well, we shall see if that prediction comes to light. But before then, we have a small matter of the World Cup to deal with. So, 6 weeks of wall-to-wall football in searing heat. What could possibly go wrong? Everything,
uh,
clearly.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, but quite a